The interview, which lasted over 2 hours, was posted late last month and has been seen over 20 million times. The conservative commentator Tucker Carlson interviewing Nick Fuentes, the 27-year-old hard-right influencer with millions of followers known as Groypers. Fuentes is known for his open racism.
White people have a special heritage here as Americans.
His misogyny, like when he wrote, "Your Body, My Choice," after the 2024 election.
The whole political system is just based around women never being accountable for any of their choices.
And his overt anti-Semitism, ranging from Holocaust denial to his belief in a global Jewish conspiracy.
A big challenge to that is organized Jewry in America.
But Kevin Roberts, head of the Heritage Foundation, defended Carlson. Roberts argued attacking Carlson was a distraction.
The venomous coalition attacking him are sowing division. Their attempt to cancel him will fail. Most importantly, the American people expect us to be focusing on our political adversaries on the left, not attacking our friends on the right.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the Midas Touch Network. No enemies to the right. That is a phrase popularized by Steve Bannon back in 2016. And I remember thinking at the time how hyperbolic it was. Surely the mainstream conservative movement would still be able to criticize neo-Nazis and other extremists to their right. But last week, the Heritage Foundation, the ideological standard bearer for American conservatism, came to the defense of Tucker Carlson for his fawning interview of avowed white supremacist Nick Fuentes. Here is how Tucker Carlson welcomed Fuentes to his show.
Nick Fuentes, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I wanted to meet you.
This was not the kind of interview designed to undermine or expose Fuentes' extremism. It was intended to uplift it. I spoke to researcher and Nazi-hunter Kris Goldsmith about this. In part one of our interview yesterday, Kris explained why the very act of platforming someone like Fuentes is harmful to democracy. In the second part, we dive into why so many young men in particular are drawn to Fuentes. And Kris helps unpack this deeply corrosive idea that has taken hold within American conservatism of no enemies to the right. Here is part two of our conversation. How do you understand the appeal of his hateful rhetoric, of his performative anti-Semitism to young men in particular? I'm trying to imagine myself, 35 years ago now, as the consumer of that kind of thing and the kinds of things that appeal to me. And I get the appeal of edginess, of subversiveness. I'm thinking about that young staffer who had the American flag with the swastika on it. Can you help explain for, as you observed, for an audience that is probably a little older than that, the folks who listen to us and trust us, how does someone like Nick Fuentes get held up as a role model, much less, Tucker Carlson or Kanye West or Andrew Tate? I mean, these rabid anti-Semites. What's the attraction?
Yeah, so there are multiple levels. And we talked about kind of my personal experience of like almost entering the radicalization pipeline when I was young after coming home from Iraq and being in a very, very vulnerable state. I'm not trying to infantilize young men, but that is the case, right? Young men do not have fully developed frontal lobes, and that makes them less risk averse. That makes them more attracted to things like contrarianism. In my case, I was never religious. The closest thing that I had to it was my love of country when I was a kid. I know that sounds corny, but that's who I was. Like, I always wanted to serve in the military from the time that I was a toddler. And when I deployed to Iraq, a war that was based on lies, there were no weapons of mass destruction, right? And it wasn't a short, easy war like the Desert Storm that I had watched on TV as a kid. It was a 20-year quagmire. I lost my religion. And when I felt like something so core to my belief system and my very existence was a lie, that made me start to look for lies everywhere. And that is part of what Nick Fuentes and the far right's appeal is they say, like, oh, the whole system is rigged. The system is rigged against you, young white man. You didn't get this scholarship because only black people can get this scholarship, without, adding in the history or context of things like redlining or racist discrimination historically that have set back generations of black people, right? These are things that young men don't have the context for, and they don't have a real reason to be empathetic about it if it's not something that's part of their life, right? And there's also part of the young man's tough guy, like, edginess thing. I am lucky in that, famous comedians, like a big influencer when I was a kid was George Carlin. George Carlin had a show that I remember when HBO, was coming out of a little box on top of my big tube TV, that it was very controversial for him to do the show on the 7 things that you can't say on television, the 7 words that you can't say on television, right? But George Carlin was a good guy. He was using that bombastic outrage stuff that Howard Stern popularized in the 90s. But he was doing it in a way that was good. You listen to George Carlin talk about, the ills of capitalism and healthcare. All of these things are still relevant, right? But instead of a George Carlin-like figure who's using that kind of edginess, that controversy to gather an audience so that they can talk about real issues and the people who are responsible for problems, you have people filling the void, like Nick Fuentes, who has spent countless hours sitting in front of a computer just creating content. And over time, doesn't matter what platform, if you just keep creating content the way that he does, your audience will get massive. And he has reached a point where he now is influencing what is happening in congressional offices, in the White House, and every federal agency.
Hey everyone, it's Ken. Quick break here to say thanks for watching, and a huge shout out to everyone who supported my most recent reporting trip to Ukraine. I hope you followed the updates on Substack. I reported from Chernobyl, from Kyiv and Odessa, and from frontline positions alongside some of the bravest people I have ever met. If you haven't yet signed up for my Substack, please check it out. It's free to join. The link's below. Thanks. I want to close with final thoughts about the Heritage Foundation and the implications for republicanism and the conservative movement, because you have to wonder if their hearts are really in it, or if they're, in a way, trapped by their own rhetoric, by the ecosystem that they've built. It seems like Kevin Roberts, the president of Heritage Foundation's defense of Tucker Carlson, was reflexive. Mm-hmm. It was a tribal thing. It wasn't a principled or ideological thing. I want your take on that, and I'm wondering where this goes. How does a movement that is no longer rooted in principle, but rooted in defensive tribal members?
Yeah, so there's an idea that's popular for them, and it's no enemies to the right.
That's it. Yeah.
They don't believe that they should ever focus their attention on correcting the behavior of someone to their right or holding people to their right accountable. They call this cancel culture, right? It is it's not ironic. It's expected that the Heritage Foundation's president was cheering the cancellation of Jimmy Kimmel, but is mad about the cancellation of a neo-Nazi, Nick Fuentes, and Tucker Carlson, right? That is telling. What I think that Republicans, whether they're MAGA or trying to just keep their head down, old school Republicans, or the Heritage Foundation, which is very much MAGAfied now, is they think that they're immune from history and that they're immune from the way that humans tend to do the same types of things over and over again. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes is not just a phrase. It is meaningful because we see it all the time. The Night of the Long Knives has not happened yet.
Explain that.
So the Night of the Long Knives was part of Hitler's takeover of Nazi Germany. What the conservatives in Germany did was they allowed Hitler to rise to power because they thought, hey, here's this guy who's tapping into this populist outrage. And yeah, we think he's a clown. We think that he's a carnival barker, the same way that, a lot of us thought about Donald Trump. And they allowed Hitler to rise to power. And it was only once Hitler got in power that he started removing all of the conservatives, the traditional conservatives, from the German government. And famously, he did this by murdering a ton of people, not just ejecting them from government. We are still barreling towards that moment when Donald Trump purges the government of those who are disloyal to him. We have not reached that phase yet. We have seen the normal levers of power. Russ Vought, or whatever his name is, at OMB is kind of using the Project 2025 playbook. So we know where he's going with that. These are things that we can expect. We have not seen Trump act out of desperation or true rage yet. That day is still coming. And when it comes, it will get people like the president of the Heritage Foundation. There is no institution that is perfectly aligned with Donald Trump. And it doesn't matter if you're someone like Marco Rubio, who's sold his spine and his soul. Like, you're going to get chewed up by the fascist machine. It's going to happen.
And the real test is the continuity of the Trump regime. And they are already laying the groundwork for that in the discussions about a third term and the passing of the torch. But, I think that's going to be when the few remaining conservatives face that ultimate loyalty test and either go along or are victim of another Night of the Long Knives.
Yeah. I think that the only way that Donald Trump doesn't sincerely try to get a third term is if the cheeseburgers get to him first.
Yeah.
Like, that is the only way that Donald Trump will ever leave power. We saw him sulk away after he lost a free and fair election to Joe Biden. We saw him for the first time in history not participate in a peaceful transfer of power. He has only become more angry and aggrieved and powerful since then. So I don't think that anyone should expect him to just lose an election and walk away, or to even allow a primary on the Republican side.
Yeah. Well, dark stuff. Kris, we'll have you back again soon, but give us an update on offense and on the other projects you're working on.
Yeah, so really big week. I know the people who follow me on social media have not been seeing a lot of activity from me lately, and that's because I'm building a lot of things that are going to facilitate the creation of more media, because it can't just be Nick Fuentes who's on video all the time. There needs to be a force opposite that, right? And I humbly submit to you as one of the many pieces of that puzzle. So on Veterans Day 2025, I will be launching my first episode of the On Offense podcast. It'll be on the Valor Media Network, which I want to encourage you to go and subscribe to now. On Veterans Day, we are going to be working with Dropkick Murphys. We'll be unveiling a new music video that you participated in the filming of over in Ukraine. And we should be airing a complete show recorded in Germany. Now, I think that it is really poetic to have the Dropkick Murphys, an American pro-union band, over in Germany, doing a show on fighting fascism to a German audience who is united with Americans and saying "fuck fascists" everywhere. I think it's going to be incredibly powerful. And in between those two things, you're going to have my first episode where I'm sitting down and talking with Ken Casey about what inspires him to be in the fight. And frankly, where are the rest of the musicians? Right, during the Bush era that I, grew up in, there was a lot of great music, a lot of protest music. I feel like that is not around anymore. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, the reality is that a lot of people are afraid. I mean, I think that is a big part of the answer. Kris, as always, great having you. We'll put all the links in the show notes. See you soon.
Thanks a lot, brother.